Hello everyone, and welcome to the AWS Nordics Office Hours with me, Gunnar Grosch, developer advocate at AWS, based here, of course, in the Nordics. This is my weekly show where I bring on AWS experts to talk about specific topics. So you, our viewers, in the end, by the hour, hopefully you've learned something new. And usually I learn a lot of new things as well. And we want this show to be interactive. So if you have any questions, any comments, just pop those into the chat and we'll do our best to answer those. And like I said, I bring on AWS expert. And this week, I'm super happy to bring on one of my teammates all the way from South Africa. Welcome to the show, Veliswa.
Hi, Gunnar. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. The last time I was on this show, I was very new at AWS, and I don't even know. Yeah, if you're in the call, please don't look up that video. But so I'm very happy to be back.
I think we were talking about AWS reInvent 2020, if I remember correctly. So that is a long time ago.
It was.
Well, great to have you back finally, Veliswa. And yeah, you're just like me, but in South Africa or sub-Saharan Africa, I think is.
Yes,
your
sub-Saharan Africa. Yes, yeah. And I'm right at the bottom. I'm based in Johannesburg.
Cool. All right. So every week we have a new topic to talk about. And this week we have a very exciting topic. We're going to talk about how to build, train, and deploy machine learning models using geospatial data. And I think to start things off, I think you need to explain what type of data that actually is, Veliswa.
Okay, so geospatial data is data that we actually consume today already. Apps that we have on our phones are, whether we actually are aware of it or we're not aware of it, these apps are gathering geospatial data. Once I start talking about what geospatial data is, I'm actually going to ask you on the call to let us know in the chat what app do you have that you think then has geospatial data. So if you've got a Maps app and you use that to find a restaurant or to find the quickest route to get somewhere, that is geospatial data. So there are two types of this geospatial data. You have vector data. That one has got points. So it's just going to show you points and where everything is. And then there's also what they call the rector data. And that one has satellite images as well. So it's more enriched. So it's more of like enrichment on top of your vector data. So that is geospatial data. Now that I've talked about it, what app? There's an app that I rely on quite a lot that actually uses geospatial data. So maybe you can think of one, our favorite e-hailing apps. They use geospatial data as well to navigate and get us to places that we need to go to. So that's geospatial data.
All right. And I guess many types of apps, like you mentioned, use that type of data. But in this case, we're going to talk specifically about using that type of data for machine learning models.
Yes, we are. So this capability, geospatial ML on AWS, was announced at reInvent 2022. Right now, it's under preview. And the advisory, because it's still under preview, is that you don't use it for production data as yet or building production models. But it's exciting enough to start exploring with it and start doing your experimentation. And maybe you can be part of actually being the customers that give feedback to the service teams and help us improve as they're actually working on improving those capabilities. So that is the capability that was announced. It is on Amazon SageMaker. Amazon SageMaker is an ML service on AWS. This is where you prepare your machine learning data. That's where you do your training. That's when you build your models, and that's where you then publish your model as an endpoint for inference or consumption, whether it's consumption via real time or via batch. So that is the capability on Amazon SageMaker. So when this was actually announced, there is it's not a customer, they have partnered with us. The name of this company is called Planet. I think we have a link somewhere that we can share with you. Planet, they build satellites. They build small satellites, which makes it a lot easier for them to launch these satellites. They've launched a lot of them. And every day they are capturing satellite imagery. They've been on orbit for about 6 years now, so they actually have about 2,000 days worth of satellite imagery. So if you go to them and you look for satellite imagery going back about 2,000 days, you can still get that. So we've partnered with them to get these high resolution, because they've got these small satellites which orbit at low orbit. They can actually get very high resolution imagery, and we've partnered with them. So they are providing us the imagery that you can now use, that is now readily available for you on Amazon SageMaker for your geospatial ML.
Very cool. And well, you mentioned Amazon SageMaker, and can you just do a quick primer of what SageMaker is? It's quite large today. There are many features, but this is one of the new features. Then.
Yes, this is one of the new features. You can do preparation of your training data on. When we look at the demo later on, we're going to step through some of the features and what you can do there. You can store features. So when you store a feature on Amazon SageMaker, it means that the feature can be used by other people in your team. So I've just said you can prepare your data, you can do your training, you can do building, you can do auto ML as well. So if you're not an experienced ML engineer, you can just do auto ML. That's actually what I do, because I am not an experienced ML engineer. Amazon SageMaker is our machine learning service. It is not where you go and write algorithms, because those, when you go to SageMaker, those are already there, available for you already to start use when you train your models. It sits in the layer. So there's an AI layer, and there's where the data scientists like to play, and SageMaker is in the middle. It's where you've got the algorithms that your data scientists wrote, and you use those to do the training of your models.
And this new geospatial machine learning capability of SageMaker, then, would you say that the target audience for this is data scientists or machine learning engineers, or with the help of these like auto ML features, could there be a wider audience for it as well?
There can be a wider audience, yes, quite right, with the auto ML, but this feature is actually for both. It's for data scientists as well, and for ML engineers as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think we should jump straight into it like we normally do on the show, and maybe have a look at this, start out from the beginning. So bringing up your screen, Veliswa,
Okay,
and
so
tell us what we're seeing.
Okay, what we're looking at now is the splash page of Amazon SageMaker. So if you're going to use Amazon SageMaker Studio, which is where you get to do your building and your training, you need to first define a domain. What a domain is, it's like a container. So it contains everything that you're going to need for your studio. So it will have elastic file system. It will have your VPC, which is your network, defined for you. It's going to have other features that also you need, so that you can actually do everything that you need to do inside your studio. Your studio is your IDE. So that's what the studio is. So
I have to say, for me, the launch of Studio, which was, I guess, another year ago, maybe, 2021 or something, I think that was super helpful, having that ability to use something that looks just like the IDEs I'm used to for machine learning, but just inside the AWS console.
Yes. So I'm going to go and create a domain, because that's where we start. But before we actually do that, we talked about some of the features of Amazon SageMaker before, what already is there. So let's just step through some of the few. And once we actually get into, once we've got our domain and we go into Studio, we're going to look at what you actually get inside Studio as well. So this is what you can actually do on Amazon SageMaker. We talked about training earlier on. You can actually create an algorithm. Yes, you can create an algorithm. So this service, Amazon SageMaker, is for data scientists as well. So this is where you can come and create an algorithms. You can define or create your training jobs on Amazon SageMaker. I talked about inference before. Once you've got your model and you publish it for inference, you can do that here as well. That's where you would publish your endpoints. And Edge Manager is you can actually publish models that can actually run on edge services as well. So that is where you would then manage all your edge devices and deploying those models on your edge devices. And just some of the features that you have on Amazon SageMaker itself. We're now still going to go onto the studio once we've done that. So I did say that you go and you create a domain. So the domain, I did talk before that it includes everything that you're going to need so that you can actually run. I mentioned the Amazon Elastic File System, EFS. We're going to see what that looks like once we've done with everything. That's what your domain actually gives you. It's got your authorization. So you authorize users that are actually allowed to do anything on your studio. When we define this and we define the users, we actually attach a role onto it, and that role actually determines what kind of access and permissions your users actually has, some kind of security and other configurations that you actually need. So I've got a couple of domains here that I was creating just with my testing. I'm going to create a new one just so you can actually see how we actually go and create a domain. When you set up a domain, a SageMaker domain, you can either do a quick setup or you do, if you do a standard one, you must kind of know that this is where you can kind of customize. But with a quick setup, there's a lot that's already just set up for you if you just choose that option. And I'm going to go with a quick setup. When you do that, you will define a domain name, and the name of your domain has to be unique across your AWS account. So I've got a couple of domains that I already created, so I can't name this the same name. So I'm just going to do, so I already have a domain called geospatial hash test. So I'm not going to use that name again. I'll increment the numbers that I've been using there. So there's a name. And then a user profile. There is a default name that they will actually assign to the user profile. The user profile is the user that's going to be have a role attached to it that gives it permissions to do things inside your studio. So there's a default name that actually gets assigned, but you can, if you want to, just give your own name. I'm going to leave it as it is. It doesn't really bother me so much. Execution role, you can either have you can create a new role from scratch if you want to, or have some existing if you already have a role that you have on your Amazon SageMaker before, you can just use that. I have a role that was created the first time when I actually came here. It has a lot of permissions on SageMaker Studio. I'm just going to go with that. So I'm just going to choose that.
And these are IAM roles. So
these are IAM roles.
Yes.
Yes, these are IAM roles. And then submit. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to actually set up. And while that's happening, let's actually just talk about a couple of other use cases that we have for geospatial data. And I thought it was very interesting for me when I actually found out. Some of the use cases, geospatial data actually solves real-life problems that we have today. There's a customer that went to Planet. It's an NGO, and they were suspecting that there are camps and illegal prisons where they were illegally holding people for human trafficking. So they went to Planet and they said, can you please get us imagery over that location, and then we can see what is actually going on there. And they were actually able to show them that there really are camps there. And from then on, then maybe if they need to forward that to authorities to act on that further, they could do that. They use geospatial data as well for monitoring over the Amazon forest. Is there any deforestation happening there? And if there is, why? So they do that monitoring as well. And they can look at how a section on Earth is actually changing over time. And I talked earlier on about 2,000 days worth of data. So they can go back to about 6 years and they can actually do all of this. Think about climate change, wildfires that happen. And now you've got your first respondents, and they need to go in, they need to know the safest entry point to go and fix what's happening and rescue humans that are in there. They also need to know the safest exit point. That's what geospatial data also actually gets used for. There is a customer of AWS that's it's a startup that started in Cape Town here in South Africa, and I love this story because South African story, but they've gone global since. What they do is they help farmers protect their crop or maximize their crop yield. So they take satellite imagery and they combine that with street level data that they get via drones. They combine that and they can then provide analytics to the farmer. So the farmer can then just look on the app and what they're getting, and they can maybe then go walk through the crop and actually look at what they've identified on the app as not a healthy crop. They can go and walk through that and decide how they can actually remediate that. Interestingly enough, talking about this customer from South Africa originally, I'm not quite sure where they actually get their satellite imagery. There is a link where you can actually go and we're going to share that link as well. Go onto the YouTube and hear more of their story, and I can access their website as well, Aerobotics, and you can just read up more about them and what they actually do. And I'm thinking now, if they were getting their satellite imagery from somewhere else and uploading that onto S3, with the partnership that we have with Planet that makes images readily available on Amazon Stage 3, if they decide to, they may decide that they want to not obtain their imagery where they used to before. So that's the option that they get out of this. Think about sustainability, city developments. What if a city, they decide they're just going to build up flats and they're not going to leave any space for people to walk. They're not going to leave up any space for people to build parks. This is what geospatial data can also help you with. Monitoring of building constructions and insurance risks. These are just some of the use cases. And if you're on the call and there are any other use cases that you can think of over and above the ones that we're talking about, you can just let us know as well. I thought those are and I just love how it just solves real life issues today.
Yeah, it is. I guess it is basically about making predictions based on geographic locations, and the possibilities are endless, I guess. And with many of the apps we see today, that is happening all the time. People are doing that, but doing it traditionally has, I have to say, been quite time consuming, being able to do those types of predictions.
Yes.
I see a green light.
Yes, so we've got a green light. So our domain is ready. It's being created. And now what do we go and do? We go and launch it. And now that's going to launch our studio. And this is where the fun is now going to start. So this is very quick to launch. So we should be okay. Let me just close this other one here.
We still see the previous screen. I'm not sure if it opened.
Let me see.
The wrong tab, maybe.
Let me just share this tab instead.
Yeah.
Is that helpful? Yes.
That's now saying creating the Jupyter server. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the one. So this part is pretty quick. Something else that I just wondered, had we so your studio is created with Jupyter Lab, which is your that's like your internet or your web-based what do I call it? Your interface, your web-based interface. And had we done this demo before January of this year, we would have had to go and specify that we want version 3 because it was still defaulting to version 1. But now, since after end of last month, it defaults to version 3. So we don't have to go and do that. So you don't have to worry about that. When you actually do go and start doing this yourself, it's going to, by default, go to version 3. Let me look to see that we are on the right screen. Can you actually see this? Do I need to zoom in
I can see the studio now.
Okay.
And yeah, maybe we can zoom in a step or two if that's possible.
Okay. Let's just see. Yeah. Is this better?
Yes, I think that's good.
Okay. Okay. We talked before about things that you can do on Amazon SageMaker. We talked about AutoML. And I mentioned this story that I'm not an experienced ML engineer, so I really do appreciate Autopilot. So with Autopilot, you just come in and you create an experiment, you add your data, and then it will do all those steps that I talked about, preparation for you, training. It will do all of those automatically for you. At the end, you're just going to have your readily built model with an endpoint that you can launch. So it's a very amazing feature that you have on SageMaker Studio. Or you can run experiments. And then there's pipelines as well that you can actually create. This is automated AutoML workflows that you can define on SageMaker Studio as well. You can do that. You can deploy your projects. You can deploy your endpoints. And this is a new tab that was not here before. And this is where you're now going to find geospatial, where we're going to do all things geospatial. So grouped in there is Data Wrangler. Data Wrangler was announced, I think, reInvent of 2020. Was it 2021? I don't know if you can remember, or 2020, Gunnar?
Oh, I would say 2021.
I think 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're watching and you have a different date, let us know.
Yeah.
So data Wrangler does the aggregation and the preparation of your data. It does that all automatically for you. You don't have to stress so much about that anymore. And I talked about feature stores before, that you can store and share a feature. You can do that. So it's under this data tab, and that's where geospatial is. And this is where you are working with geospatial data. Now I've just launched the geospatial extension, and we're going to see what you get to see. Now we are on the splash page of geospatial, and it does say you unlock building ML models with geospatial data. There are three capabilities that currently are available with this preview. Something I missed mentioning when we were creating the domain is that because this is on preview for now, it's just available in the Oregon region. So when you create your domain, just make sure that there where you define your region on that tab on the top, that you do say Oregon. So there are three capabilities that you have. Using an API on AWS CLI or within an SDK, you can run Earth observation jobs. So you can start those on the CLI or via an SDK, and then you can come onto here and you can then view your jobs or monitor them as they are running. So what Earth observation actually does, it lets you acquire, transform, and visualize data that's collected from the Earth's surface to get insights and make predictions. Remember that example we talked about the NGO that thought that there was a camp or an illegal prison somewhere? That would be the kind of jobs that they would run. Once they've got that imagery, they could run the imagery on here using Earth observation jobs, and then out of what they can get insights and they can make predictions. What you can also do is you can do vector enrich. You can run vector enrichment jobs. It's the same using an API on AWS CLI. You can start the job there, and you can come here and you can monitor it and follow what it does. What you do with vector enrichment is very similar to what we're going to see when we do the demo on map visualization. You have your geocode, map coordinates, and you can come onto vector enrichment, and you can, on top of them, layer an imagery. And all of a sudden, you've got an enriched address. Maybe you've got a street address. I'm always thinking of Google Earth when I think of this. 'Cause Google Earth, you've got an address, but you can also see people, you can see streets, and that's what you can do with vector enrichment. And the demo that we're going to have is on map visualization, and you're going to see what this looks like. I'm now going to go and try this. Try it, and this is what we see. This is the third capability of geospatial ML on Amazon SageMaker. For this, we have partnered with Foursquare. I think some of us on the call, or all of us on the call, might be aware of Foursquare. They provide maps, and we've partnered with them for Foursquare Studio, and they're providing the map that we actually work with here. I'm not sure how clear this is. I tried to not have this in dark mode, but it doesn't look like, it looks like right now it's available in dark mode. Is it actually clear? Can we all see?
The map is a bit dark, I'd say,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think we can see the main part
Okay.
of it.
So what's going to happen is that you have a data set that has, right now, what we're working with is housing data sets. So you're going to upload this onto map visualization, and you will be able to do quite a couple of, look at a couple of insights once you've uploaded it onto here. Your data set can either be in your local machine right now, because what you can do here, you are testing and experimenting. And once you actually have done all the, looked at all the different angles that you want to look at, you can then take this and run it from inside your whatever your software, if you want to do that. So here you're just using the console right now just to experiment, and then later on you can just insert this into your applications. So this is what this console is actually all about. So you're gonna upload your data. It's either on your laptop or it's on S3. If you specify an S3 bucket, you must make sure that that execution role that we talked about before has access to read that S3 bucket, and there's also access to write to that S3 bucket in case it needs to do that. But for this demo, we're going to use a data set that's on my local machine. What test data set you can use right now for testing? You can go into Kaggle. I'm using the one that is showing houses in Miami. It's showing houses that have been sold in Miami, and it has just under 14,000 listings on it. And once I add this, it will start making a little bit of more sense. So I'm now uploading from my local machine. I've got this on Kaggle. So if you want to play around with this, you can access this. I think we do have a link, Gunnar, that we can share if anyone. I think there is a California data set as well, but I got the Miami one. It was one of the good data sets that you can actually work with. So I have added the data set. So you can add files that are CSV format, JSON format, or GeoJSON format. My one is a CSV format that I'm actually working with. Once you have uploaded that, you'll see that already it went and then superimposed on top of what was just a flat map. It's superimposed imagery. And now you can manipulate and look at this imagery from all kinds of different angles, depending on what you actually want to look at. So right now, we are seeing this in 2D, the map in 2D. If you want, you can change it to 3D. I'm actually going to keep it on 3D. I actually like 2D. I think I want to work from 2D. You can look at it like that. If you want, you can, I did not split this, or if you can split it if you want, but I'm just doing like a single pane view. You can do that. If you want to draw lines, you can say you want to draw a rectangle or a polygon. It's up to you. And if you want to change your points, changing a point, we're going to look at, and we're going to look at that, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I say about changing your point. So now you have uploaded this data set, and you're probably curious to see what columns are actually in there. So this has, I did say, just under 14,000 rows. It has 17 columns, and the columns that you have, you've got a latitude, a longitude, parcel number, you've got the sale price of that house, you have square foot of that house, you have how far is it from a railroad, how far is that house from the ocean, you've got an age, how old is this house, you've got a couple other the quality of the structure. You've got the month in which it was sold. You've got a couple of other columns that you can actually look at. And then you can do filtering. And that's, for me, is when it started looking fun, because you'll see the map change depending on what we actually click on. And just going back to the data, I uploaded the one data set, but you can actually upload more than one data set if you want to do that. I mentioned that story before about one of the customers of AWS that combines satellite imagery with imagery they get from drones. So if they want to, they could upload all those different data sets, and then they can group them if they want. They can do groupings. But yes, you can upload more than one data set. You're not limited to just one data set. And I talked about points before. Points is just points. You see, when we look at maps, it's got different kinds of points. So you can say what point you actually want. But I'm going to keep mine to the one that's here already. So you can say you want an icon or a cluster. So this is just how you want to view. So I'm going with the default one that's there. And then you can change your colors if you want to do that, and all kinds of things that you can do. Are there any questions at this point that maybe I should pause?
There's no questions in the chat at the moment. I'm just trying to keep up with what's happening myself. But I think this is an interesting example as well. I think housing price data is a great example of how to actually use this, but because location is, of course, important when it comes to that type of data, then combined with everything else around that house. My neighbor is selling their house, and I'm super interested in the valuation they put on it. I'm not sure what data set they used, but I don't think it's a relevant one, to be honest.
Yes. So yeah, now talking about filtering. This is where you're going to see the map starting to change. I'm going to want, when we're looking at all the columns that are there, because you could be saying, I want to buy a house in Miami, but I want a house that's not so close to the ocean. Or you say, I want a house that's very much on the ocean. So I'm going to start with that as a filter. So I've selected ocean distance as my filter. Is this still quite visible, this map?
Yes.
Okay. And now it is hiding from me. Let me just go down and. Okay. So I'll say I want one that's not so close to the ocean, and that's the ocean distance. And I want far from the ocean. I want far from the ocean. And as you play around with that, you see how the map starts to change, because now you're starting to see houses that are not so close to the ocean. You move it out, and then you can say as close to the ocean as possible. That's what I want to see. Or you can go for a different filter. I'm now going to use age as because I want to say maybe want to look at newer houses and real estate companies. This can be very, very useful for them as well. Customer comes in, they don't want to be so close to the ocean. So before they even go out to start looking at houses, physically looking at houses, they could actually use this to do the demo for them. And now maybe they've said they want a house that's fairly newly built. They don't want a house that's too old. That also, you can play around with the filters and do that. And so now I've reduced to say I want newer houses. So you can see the filter changing there. And when you say want older houses that are older, let's say a house that was built 60 years ago, going back, you change that, and that changes as well. So it is as simple as that, and that's how you can start doing map visualization. We don't know yet when we're going to move from this being in preview to being generally available, because a lot of what our customers actually tell us and what we get from our customers actually determines what we because we're still working with the features, and then that then will determine the date of it going generally available. But if you're very curious to start playing around with this, you can actually do that in preview. I think I also did share some links on when you can actually read up more if you want to get started with this as well. I think I do have a link that I shared there from a tutorial, and that's when you can actually get started with this as well.
It's very cool. Yeah, I've shared a bunch of links in the chat. Let me see if I missed any of them. I believe I posted those. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so they posted. So a customer might be thinking, what's the big deal? Why should I care about geospatial ML on Amazon SageMaker? And I think to answer that, I'm going to go through the process that you would normally go through if you wanted to process or work with geospatial data, maybe anywhere, but on Amazon SageMaker before we actually had this feature where we have it natively available on Amazon SageMaker. So this is what you would normally do. You would get all your, just like that customer started out in Cape Town that I talked about. You would get your imagery from satellites. Maybe you have other imagery that's sitting in your S3 bucket. You've got maybe street map data that you have. You've got places data that you've got your customer check-in data that you have, because you use that as well for location data. You have all of that. That's your social check-in data that I just talked about. You have all of that, and then you have to transform that data. So talking about transformation, you probably maybe want to add GPS coordinates to that. And once you have added your GPS coordinates, you now want to start building your model. So whether you want to make predictions or you want to do detection of objects. So it depends on what your use case is for that model. Do you want to do predictions, or you want to do detections? And then once you're done, you want to host your model. That entire process takes long, mainly because the satellite imagery tends to not be so readily available. This is, I think when I said earlier on that our partnering with Planet is because they actually capture data every day and they make it available every day. So with the partnering with them, we now are making sure that you don't have the challenge of not having this satellite imagery readily available. And what used to also happen is that sometimes it is available, but it's not in good quality. So you still can't really do much with it. With what they've done, the Planet, whom we've partnered with, because of their satellites and where they actually orbit, you get high resolution data as well. So this entire thing behind this capability is that with the partnership that we have, we are making this imagery available for you more regularly. And then you're also getting high resolution data. So good quality images for you to work with as well. The other parts of the process, once you've got your imagery, your preparation of it, you could then maybe use Data Wrangler. So you always had that available for you outside of just this capability. But the main challenge for our customers was always being able to access that satellite imagery and having access to good quality satellite imagery as well. So that is our geospatial data, our geospatial ML on Amazon SageMaker.
All right. So then now for customers who, like you said, this is in preview now, but if you want to get started with this, if you already have a use case for it, how would you go about that then to start using this capability right now?
Okay. So the advisory right now is that you don't use this for production models. So, but there's nothing stopping you for starting your development, doing your testing, and even actually partnering with us at AWS, because those customer insights, as you actually work with us, actually help us as we are working towards making this generally available. So you can actually get started now. The two other, what we looked at as a demo was the map visualization, but there is also the Earth observation, and then there's the vector enrichment that I mentioned. There are APIs that are available for them already. APIs that you can run either from the CLI or from inside an SDK. So you can actually get started with this already now, just that not for production workloads as yet.
And the example you showed here is how would a customer use this once it is available, generally available as a service? I'm guessing they won't do it through SageMaker Studio.
So they would still do all their building and training via SageMaker Studio. But what the whole thing with this is that there's all different kinds of use cases and applications that you maybe are wanting to integrate geospatial data into, like this data set that we just looked at. I'm thinking a real estate agent, this is a useful tool for them. Maybe before they even have the customer come and they go and show the house to them, they can show all kinds of scenarios to a customer using an app that has where they've included this capability into software or an application that does this. So this is one of the use cases you can use it for. The Earth observation capability, that's for prediction, that's for observation. So that capability looks at images and objects on the Earth's surface. Depending on what you are then seeing, you can go and act. I heard of a story with the Earth observation where there is a customer that's in Brazil that's using that to monitor deforestation of the Amazon. That has a lot of implications around climate change, around who's doing the deforestation. Is it people who are actually authorized to do that? So based on those insights, they could act. And I remember a couple of weeks, was it reInvent 2021? There was a hackathon that we actually had here at AWS. It was a disaster response hackathon. So what we were doing just before we announced Studio Labs, we asked our customers to come up with use cases and just build a model, a disaster recovery model, using all kinds of disaster recovery data sets and how you would act on what kind of disaster response you would do based on that model. So this can actually be used for that. Earth observation as well, monitoring of wildfires and floods can be used for that. And then responders can actually respond based on what they're using. So these are the use cases that you can actually use for this. And there is another use case that I heard of, which I thought was very, very interesting. Fintech, there are fintech companies that are monitoring which, what do they call it when is it harvesting in Ukraine? Because of all the impact with the conflict and the war that's happening there, they can then, looking at how much wheat is actually being harvested, they can then make predictions around price and cost. Is the price of bread going to go up? And all of those costing, make those predictions based on what's happening there. That's also using geospatial data. So it's all these use cases. And what I find really interesting is how these are such real life use cases. And some of them, you probably work and you don't even think about them, but these are the use cases that are already available. I use the common one when I'm talking about e-hailing because, yeah, that's how the e-hailing app know where to fetch you and know where to actually drop you off. That's using geospatial data as well.
Yeah, route optimization for companies in logistics and so on. Is, I guess, a good example of it as well.
Yes.
All right, so I'm pasting the link to the product page again in the chat. So do check out these new geospatial machine learning capabilities within Amazon SageMaker. And I guess with that, Veliswa, it's time to wrap up. So I want to ask you if you have any upcoming events you want to plug to the audience. I know you always have a bunch of things to do. So.
I have another Twitch stream tomorrow where I'm giving the exact same talk. So if you had questions today and maybe you couldn't ask them on time, maybe you can join tomorrow. It's the AWS She Builds Tech Skills. We meet the last Tuesday of every month, time is 1 p.m. CEST, I think. I always convert to South African time.
Yeah.
I think it's 12 p.m. my time.
Right.
And we host women because it's about just showcasing women building on AWS. And tomorrow, for the first time, I'm usually the one of the hosts, and for the first time tomorrow, I'll be the guest. So I'll be giving this talk and maybe a different demo. Maybe you can join that one and you can check that one out. And I don't have anything else coming up quite recently after that. What I've been really have my head down doing is because I do blog for the AWS News blog team, and what's so great with that is that I work with the service teams, upcoming features and service announcements. I write the blog team, so when the service or the feature goes live, my blog post goes live. I have a blog post going live tonight, my time, and or our time, and I'm very excited about that feature. And it was it's on a service that enterprises especially love or quite useful. Very excited. It was such a great service team to work with. So that's going live at around 6 p.m. my time, which is South Africa Standard Time. So there's that coming up as well. And I've got a couple of other blog posts that are coming up next month. So I think I've been doing a lot more writing than talking most of this time this
That
year
is
so far.
a very important part of it all. But I also know that you will be visiting us in the Nordics in about a
Yes.
month and a half as well. So if people are not aware, we are doing a bunch of AWS summits across EMEA now in the next few months, starting with Paris in April and then going through a bunch of different major cities. And we then have Stockholm on May 11th, and Veliswa is one of the speakers there. So if you want to meet Veliswa in person, join us in Stockholm.
Super excited. And I couldn't make it last year because I couldn't get a visa on time, and now I've got a visa that's valid. So I'll be there.
Looking forward to that.
Very excited.
All right, Veliswa, thank you very much for joining us today. And thanks to everyone watching. This has been another episode of AWS Nordics Office Hours. And we will, of course, be back again next week. So, everyone, take care.
Thank you. Bye.